The military is a funny thing here in America. We don't look at it the same way other nations do. Let me explain. You and I are obviously very, very blessed to be here. You won life's lottery. You were born in the United States of America. With all due respect to our international viewers, I know we have a bunch of those too, but speaking to the Americans, you were born just geographically, you won life's lottery. What do I mean by that? Well, you can tell a lot by maps, by globes. Pull up a little map app on your phone, and what will you see when you look at the United States? A gigantic ocean to the right, a gigantic ocean to the left, Canada, a friend to the north, and Mexico, a friend to the south. You, an American, with the obvious exception of something like Pearl Harbor, which took place over in Hawaii, you've never even experienced some sort of significant attack on your shores. Now, you're sitting there right now saying, well, yeah, of course. That's not how other people live. Other people around the globe are butted right up against an enemy, routinely in little scuffles, border wars, real wars. But you and I, as Americans, we don't live like that. We haven't ever had to live like that by the grace of God. And because of the fighting power of our Navy, we're not really in any significant danger of having to live like that anytime soon. But the thing about it is this. There was a period of time when the citizens of ancient Rome, and I'm not talking about the whole empire, I'm talking about the city itself, ancient Rome, right there on that west side of Italy, where they had that exact same experience. If you were a resident, they had about 1 million people in it at its height. If you were a resident of ancient Rome, what do you ever have to worry about? You have the Roman legions all around you at all sides. Oh, and that ocean border you have? You also have the best navy in the world by a mile. There's nobody even close to you. None of this is ever going to matter. Who cares about the rest of the world? Life is good. Until the Vandals are knocking down your door and they're raping and pillaging their way through the city and taking everything. You see, you're perfectly safe in your gigantic empire right up to the point where you're not safe anymore. The American military has always been something we Americans, we love it. We admire it. We love it. Thank our veterans, things like that. We honor our troops as we should. It's really cool. It's a good thing about the country. But in other parts of the world, they look at their military as saviors, as the only thing standing between them and evil. There's going to be a time, whether it's you, your kids' generation, 10 generations from now, there's going to be a time when American citizens will need the American military to stand between them and a very powerful, very evil force that's coming to kill them all. When I rant so much about the United States military, it's actually not. I know a lot of people think it's because I did 4 years in the Marine Corps. It's not that. It's not that at all. It's because I know the history of the world. And the history of the world tells me there are wolves out there all the time. And you had better be ready to fight them off or you're going to die. And our military, with this absurd lack of focus we have right now, we are in trouble. We were in deep, deep trouble by the time Barack Obama left, when he put in all these political people and he put in all this social justice crap all throughout our military. It got really bad under Obama. I had a bunch of friends who were still in who got out under Obama. They couldn't take it anymore. So that was bad enough. And then Trump gets in. And I'm proud of Trump. Thought he did a lot of great things. He did not understand the problem, the deep internal rot within our military. So there was no clean out. So it got worse. And now Trump loses. Joe Biden gets in. We're doubling and tripling down on everything. It's really bad. And now, as it stands right now, what are you and I doing? We can yell about this. We can yell about that. I don't like the National Guard troops in D.C. You see the National Guard troops. We still have thousands of National Guard troops guarding the Capitol against 3 dorks in an internet forum. It's the stupidest thing in the world. But that's just a minor thing, really, right? What do we do when it doesn't become a minor thing anymore? What do we do when it becomes something else? We can yell about all this transgender insanity, changing the uniforms. The girls get to get the nails done now and all these other things. It's all fun and games now. What do we do when it actually matters? And I will tell you this, I still have many friends at different levels in the United States military. You don't understand how significant the problems are. And we've gotten so far past discussing some basic problems, now we're discussing nutball problems. We have the military paying for transgender surgery and stuff. We're way past the point of having hard discussions like, you ready for this? Should women be deployed on a naval vessel? They never were before. They are now. You're not allowed to say anything publicly if you're in the military. That's why you can't find anything printed on it, but it's a humongous problem. It's not because women are bad. It's because women are women and men are men. And when you throw a bunch of 18, 19, 20-year-olds on a gigantic ship and send them out to sea, things are going to happen. And from those things, drama is going to happen. And soon, it's the days of our lives on an aircraft carrier instead of focusing on killing communists. That's what's happening now. And we're so far past that conversation, we can't even have that one. I don't know of another person besides me who's even willing to bring it up. But the public can see. Confidence is going down. Poll. Overall trust in the military is down 14% already from 2008. Down 14%. And Americans know. Americans are well aware there's a gigantic, significantly powerful threat out there in this world. Maybe you've heard of them. They're called China. An article came out yesterday. The Air Force ran an exercise, a simulation against China. We got crushed. We got crushed. Did you hear what I said? Poll. Americans know China's the biggest threat. 37% believe China in 2021 is the greatest. It's actually said that that's not 99%. We are losing our edge. We are. And why are we losing our edge? Oh, it's not complicated. We're not focusing on killing people. That makes people uncomfortable. I know you know I do that every day anyway, but the military's job is to kill people and break things. They're not librarians. They're not your Little League T-ball coach. They're not your Sunday school teacher. The United States military's job is to kill the enemies of the United States of America. That's their job. There's not a second job either. That's their one job. That's the one job of every military, of every nation in the history of the world. If there are enemies, go kill them so they can't kill your people. Our people? Why are we falling behind countries like China? Well, China's giving their young men masculinity classes. We've lost our mind and focusing on everything else that doesn't matter.
As China continues to increase the size of the PLA and advance their joint capabilities, the military balance in the Indo-Pacific is becoming more unfavorable for the United States and our allies. And with this imbalance, we are accumulating risk that may embolden China to unilaterally change the status quo before our forces may be able to deliver an effective response.
Of course we're emboldening China. We talk about all this insane stuff about the military has to do this and military has to do that. You remember Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin immediately puts in a stand down to take down white nationalism. China's over there polishing new missiles. We're doing a military stand down to try to root out what? Republicans? Everybody knows what this is. And we act like China can't see it. It's right in front of everyone's face. China sees it. What do you think China thinks when we do our new initiative? We need everyone to understand gender and equality more. What do you think China thinks? China sits back and says to itself, oh man, these idiots are going down when we have to take them on. Like I said, you're sitting in ancient Rome. Great military, great navy. You're untouchable, right? You've never experienced any kind of touching. They're not coming for you until one day they are. Well, one day they are. I don't know if we're going to be ready if we keep this up. We're going to talk about this military a lot tonight. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I'm right. We got a great show for you. Hang on. Joining me now, this is always a special treat for me whenever Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North comes on the show. Why? Because I don't think I've ever told him this. A long time ago when I was a skinny little runt kid looking for people to look up to, I saw this Marine Lieutenant Colonel all over TV and thought, wow, being a Marine actually looks pretty cool. And that was years before I took the plunge myself. So joining me now is Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North. He's also the author of Veterans Lament. Is this the America our heroes fought for? Colonel, what's wrong with this America?
Jesse, first of all, I always love going on with Marines, all right? And I'll tell you how important that is to me. Today is my wife's birthday, 29. There's 53 years we've been married.
Yes, sir.
And she calls up and she says, what time are you going to be home tonight? And I said, I'm going to take you out to dinner. And she said, no, you're going to fix dinner. And I said, well, I got to do Jesse's show first, and then I'll come home, because he's a Marine. So thank you, buddy. What's wrong with America? Actually, the 500 veterans that we interviewed for this book, and also 2 Marines writing this book, the 500 veterans we talked to, and we remember, this all happened before the election. All these interviews took place almost all of last year. And so it was well before we thought Biden was going to even be a part of this thing. And now it looks like it's almost prophetic what these guys were saying at the time. And what I look at today, if you look at what's happened in our Defense Department, in our U.S. military, soldiers, sailors, airmen, guardsmen, and Marines, if you look at what President Trump did to rebuild our military, got us out of the endless wars, he brought the troops home, he understood the Chinese threat, the greatest threat we've ever faced, quite frankly, given the numbers of nuclear weapons that they've got, and given the activities of the Communist Chinese government with not only their neighborhood, where they've got, massive undertakings in the South China Sea, where they're dredging up coral and building bastions, unsinkable aircraft carriers, that kind of thing, and weaponizing them against all the kinds of treaties that they've had all over. They're just ignoring all that stuff, and the secret deals that they're doing with the Iranians. And now you've got a Defense Department that is now playing wokeness. And what you've got is a Secretary of Defense who is, when he was campaigning to become Secretary of Defense, and he did campaign for it, General Austin had to get a special permission. He's one of 2 in the last two administrations. General Mattis had to get special permission. And now we've got his General Austin is now holding up the arms that were purchased by the Saudi Arabians and by the United Arab Emirates, billions of dollars worth of revenue into the United States, and there's at least a 60-day hold on whether they're going to even deliver them. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, describing climate change in the same breath as you're describing, this just happened in his Munich, sing-song that he was doing with the European allies here just a few days ago. He's holding up the arms. He's now telling them, the Europeans, that yes, we want to hold NATO together. Yes, America's back. And by the way, on top of that, describing climate change and the same national security threat as communist China and the Iranian nuclear weapons. He's offered to go back into the nuclear talks with the Iranians. Just suppose what that means to one of our closest allies on the planet Earth, Israel. Okay? It's a direct threat, an immediate threat. And of course, they've now got the ability to deliver nuclear weapons for far greater distances than they've ever had before, in large part thanks to the communist Chinese. It's the idea that a nuclear armed threat from Iran or the kinds of threats that communist China poses to us in every regard, both soft and hard, all what they're doing, in the same breath that climate change is going to be, we're going to deal with climate change with the Paris Climate Accord. I mean, that's nuts. If you think
Colonel,
about bringing transgendered people back into the military, think what that means. You have a non-deployable person being recruited into the military today. This is an all-volunteer force. But as you and I both know from being Marines, it's not open to everybody. If you're too fat, your feet are too flat, if your head doesn't fit inside a helmet, you can't come in the military. What the transgender surgeries and the transgendered hormone treatments make someone unable to deploy. And that's part of who we become. He's now also sent out the so-called 60 days to conduct a one-day stand down, a 24-hour stand down in every single U.S. military unit. So in roughly 1.5 million lost man hours, what does that do to military readiness? I wrote a column here a while back, and you can get it off Facebook. I just want to quote just a little bit of it, Jesse. I'm going to have to put my glasses on because I printed it out too small. The title of it is, Who's Got Your Back? You and I both know what that means. When the guy's standing next to you and you're about to kick in a door and go into harm's way and face possibly an enemy, the guy standing next to you says, I've got your back. That's not just a sentiment. That's a pledge. It's our lives, our fortunes, our secret honor kind of pledge, okay? When somebody says that to you, you've got security. But that doesn't stop with the guy next to you in your fire team or your squad or your platoon or your company or your battalion. It goes all the way up the line. So who's got our back if we're in the military today? That's the kind of question these guys are now asking. And they posed those questions before this election was out. It's a witch hunt that's now being taken up. It's
Colonel,
not good
what do
for
we
the
know about
country.
Lloyd Austin? I understand all that stuff sucks. I've just been pulling my hair out. Is this a guy who's just doing what he thinks his super woke president wants him to do? Is this some career bureaucrat? Because there are two very, very different kinds of officers. There are real leaders of men and there are political hacks. And I hate the political hack type. Is that what he is?
Me too. But Austin does have a good record. Austin led troops in combat. I mean, I respect that. Okay. I think what you've got is an expectation on the part of this administration. I mean, God help us if anything happens to Mr. Biden, because then you've got a real commie in charge of the country with Mrs. Harris. I mean, she is not the kind of person that we want as a commander-in-chief. So here I am now praying for my country. I'm also praying that Joe Biden doesn't fall down a flight of stairs. I mean, we need to make sure that the policies that are coming out have got to be run by things like the Senate Armed Services Committee, the House Armed Services Committee. There are some reasonable Democrats, not many of them, but there are some reasonable Democrats up on the Hill who got to stand back and say, wait a minute, what does if a guy walks into a Marine recruiting station today, he is ordered, the recruiter, if this guy wants to come in because he's going to get a transgender surgery and a transgender treatment, bring him in. Well, what good does that do the military readiness of the armed forces of the United States? You know, I look at those kinds of things with deep concern. So too did the guys that we interviewed for this book. And when you look at the separation that's occurring between, let's say, as part of this whole witch hunt, you know, his actual terms of you will not tolerate actions that go against the fundamental principles of the oath we share, including actions associated with extremist or dissident ideologies. Does that mean if you got an 18-year-old youngster showing up at a Marine recruiter and he's got, let's say, a tattoo on his arm, and the tattoo is now being used by some crazy group, left or right, does that mean he can't come in because he did something when he was 15? Does he have to go out and get that taken off before he can come in the service? One of the things that they're talking about now, and they clearly want to do this, dissident activities to include possession and distribution of printed and electronic materials, to include the publication of personal writing matters, including websites, weblogs, and other electronic communications. I mean, by the way, you can read this column up on my Facebook page. This is the kind of stuff that does smack of a witch hunt. You know, when you and I came in the service, I mean, even though I came in on the 29th of December, 1961. Were you even born yet?
No, sir. No, sir. I came in 2000.
Okay. So, all right. When you came in and I came in, there was a question asked on the questionnaire of recruiting. Are you now or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? And it's been added on to ever since then. Just imagine what the new Form 86, that's what it is, Standard Form 86, the security clearance question. Just imagine what that's going to be coming out of this stand down that we're doing. I look at it, here's what I close this thing with. This sounds a lot like a witch hunt. Does it mean that those now serving in our armed forces who profess Christianity or support the sanctity of life for unborn babies or advocate strong borders or marriage between a man and a woman no longer belong in our military? Is that now politically incorrect enough that you can't come in the armed forces? I hope not.
I hope not, too. Colonel Oliver North, thank you so much, sir. Please wish the missus a happy birthday from us.
I shall do that. Semper Fi, brother.
Semper Fi, sir. We'll be back. I realize there are many people out there who are concerned about the direction our U.S. military is taking, but I want to tell you, I saw this and I thought, they had their priorities in order.
We're making good progress designing body armor that fits women properly, tailoring combat uniforms for women, creating maternity flight suits, updating requirements for their hairstyles. And some of it is going to take an intensity of purpose and mission to really change the culture and habits that cause women to leave the military.
If having to do your hair a certain way causes you to leave the military, I don't want you in the military. But joining me now to talk about that and other things is Iraq war veteran and host of Rob Smith is Problematic. Rob, why do I care if they want to do their nails a certain way? Either conform to what the military says or pack your stuff and go be a civilian. Why is this difficult?
Look, I don't even know where to start when it comes to with everything that's going on in the military. But what I want to say is this. Okay, so there were some black female soldiers that had issues with some of the out of touch standards for hairstyles and stuff like that. Like, okay, fine, like I get that. But no, we're going into maternity suits for pilots, and we're getting into, different kinds of uniforms for females in combat and all of this stuff. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I think that a lot of times when we talk about this conversation with the military, there's some people who've never served that think that, everybody in the military, like they're just supposed to be soulless killing machines and all that stuff. Like, that's not necessarily the point. But also the point is, no matter what job you're doing in the military, you want unit cohesion. You want people that are supposed to be able to live and work together and breathe together and do everything that people in the military are supposed to do. And this stuff isn't helping. And so when you add this stuff to the fact that they're on this stand down against quote unquote extremism, when they're recommending critical race theory books like on reading lists and all of that other stuff, this stuff has nothing to do with combat readiness. This stuff has nothing to do with military cohesion. And this is the kind of reason why we are going to be so far behind China, because they are not playing these games with their military.
Rob, are you trying to say China isn't concerned about women being able to do their nails the way they want in the military? Are they worried about other things?
Yeah, I think they are worried about other things. And you know what? And I think also sometimes that we should really talk to people that are actively serving now, because sometimes when we watch Joe Biden struggle to get through that sentence, this is all about their agenda, not necessarily with exactly what is important to currently serving soldiers right now. And I know that we don't have access to them as media people because a lot of them are not allowed to speak to the media, but it would be very interesting to hear their perspective. My guess is that they are completely unconcerned with any of these things. And they're more concerned with the fact that the Biden administration is basically right now using their power to try to root out anybody that is conservative or Republican from the military and saying that they're potential extremists. I think that that's the real issue here. And that's something we should be paying a lot more attention to.
We should. And I'll tell you, Rob, I do have access to a bunch of the guys currently serving who have to obviously speak privately for reasons you just pointed out. And what concerns me is our real warfighters out there, the guys you and I would want to go back to Iraq with if we had to go. What they're telling me more than anything else is I'm getting out. They're not even telling me they're mad, they're sick of it. They're saying, hey, man, when this one's done, I'm gone. I'm not doing this anymore. And that's a big problem that you don't fully realize until it's way too late.
Yeah, you don't realize it until it's too late, because the thing about it is that, and this is the weird thing about all of this stuff, is that the kind of people that they are trying to pander to and the kind of people that they are trying to cater to have no interest in military service. Look at how these people speak about military service. Look at how these people speak about the police. These are the types of people that have no interest in military service at all. So they're pandering to try to attract people that wouldn't be interested in military service in the first place, and they're driving out the people that are already there and have been honorably serving.
Rob, I've been trying to explain to people how this will slowly rot over time, but that, and you sound like a doomsdayer when you say this. I realize that,
Yeah.
but we do have another major war coming. I don't foresee that happening tomorrow, but that's the history of the world. The history of the world tells me the number one nation in the world is going to get in a major war again. That's just the fact. And when that happens, and it's someone like China, you get your teeth kicked in because of this slow rot over time.
Well, the good news is that if we get into another war, there will be maternity flight suits for pregnant women flyers to wear. I guess, I don't know, but yeah, look, you make a really good point, and it's not. I don't think this is being doomsday. I think that this is being realistic. That the United States military and the United States will be involved in another conflict at some point, and if we are watering down the military to basically pander to the woke SJW Twitter crowd that, again, has zero interest in serving in the military, I don't know how that benefits our currently serving soldiers. I don't know how that benefits military readiness. And I don't know how that protects us in a future conflict.
Rob, you brought up what you think they're doing. So I agree the same thing. I think this is all, I think the National Guard in D.C., I think the 60-day military stand down, I think this is all them laying out the groundwork for a purge of any dissenting voice from the military. And it drives people crazy sometimes when I say that these people today, they're cultural Marxists. These people are communists. It should be more concerning if you look at them that way. They're trying to run out anyone who disagrees with them so they own the ideology in the military. That's a big deal.
It is a big deal. And, I think that a lot of people are missing the point because there's so many people that have this conversation in the media, and it's great to be speaking with another veteran about this. There's so many people who have no connection to veterans, no connection to military service at all. But, and you and I both know, most of the people in the military, lean pretty conservative, particularly in combat roles. That should be no shock to anybody else. And so, these people are probably not very into this. I don't really know what the Biden administration is doing. I don't know how this is about military effectiveness and unit cohesion. It really does just seem to be about, like you stated earlier, making sure that everybody, has a fealty and allegiance to President Biden and VP Kamala Harris over their allegiance to the United States of America. And this is very concerning because you did not see this sort of gerrymandering, this sort of messing with this military in this way under Trump. You did not see that. What you saw was love and respect for the soldiers, respect for their sacrifices, respect for their service, and the idea that you guys are the greatest fighters and warriors in the world, and I'm going to step back and let you do your job. But what you're seeing with the Biden administration and how they're treating our U.S. military right now, it is just becoming another woke corporate leftist training seminar. And I just don't think that it's good for the longevity of our military.
Rob, let's say you had a 17-year-old son, and
Yeah.
Rob Jr. comes in and says, Dad, you're my hero. I want to follow in your footsteps and go be a warrior. What are you telling him? I have two sons, and I'm worried about that conversation and what I'm going to say. What are you telling him?
I would tell him, make sure you're going into the military for the right reasons. I would tell him that we have the greatest and strongest and most powerful military in the world, and we need people that are going to go into the military for that mission, not to push whatever agenda the Biden administration is doing or any presidential administration, by the way, because this is about the protection of America. But the military that, if I had a 17-year-old kid, the military that he's going into is going to be a very different military than the one that I went into at 17 years old. And now this is not necessarily all a bad thing. Everybody knows, I fought for the right of gay and lesbian soldiers to serve openly in the military, and I still believe in that, and I believe that our military is stronger for it. But the rest of this stuff, I am not entirely sure about. I don't know if it's about combat readiness, and I don't know if this is going to be the same military that 17-year-old me served in.
Rob Smith, everybody. Thank you, my man. I appreciate you.
All right, thanks a lot, Jesse.
We'll be back. Well, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm looking forward to this. Joining me now is Republican representative from Michigan, but more importantly, Lieutenant General in the United States Marine Corps, Jack Bergman. General, why do we still have National Guard troops guarding the Capitol against three dorks on an internet forum?
Funny you should ask that question now, because I literally 45 minutes ago, like any good Marine, I smelled free food, and I went down to the guard where the guards eating their lunch here in the Capitol Visitor Center and chatted with a few of them. The bottom line is, we don't need them here. They need to go home. But what we do need, I mean, you're a Marine. Think if you were on guard duty, guarding the perimeter. Think if you're going to let anybody through that can't identify themselves, et cetera, enforce protection, force readiness. We don't have a plan here in D.C. because we've got a total lack of leadership, especially in the House. And it doesn't make any difference whether that Speaker of the House is Republican or Democrat. It's the Speaker's responsibility for risk assessment, risk management, force protection, and most importantly, force readiness to basically counter any threat.
General, it seems like just an effort to paint Republicans, I guess, or maybe Trump supporters as nutballs. That's honestly what it seems like to me. A gigantic wall with razor wire because of that stupid incident that happened on the 6th. I just don't understand it. I don't have another explanation other than they're trying to make it seem like there's this dangerous Republican element out there that I just haven't seen.
Well, you know, one of the things that I found, and I started this literally 4 years ago. I was one of the guys that the guy tried to shoot on the baseball field. And this isn't about really Democrats or Republicans in a lot of ways. It's about people who've basically never been to the fight before. And there are a lot of people here who are nervous. And when you know, in the Marine Corps, if you don't have good leadership, everybody gets a little nervous. We need better leadership here. In the elected side that will not only take the accountability, but the responsibility for the mission execution. Said a different way, and I think I might have said that backwards. You can delegate authority, but you cannot delegate responsibility. No. You can send your Marines out. Say, okay, you got the authority to do this, but ultimately, as the commander, you're responsible for that success and the readiness. That's what we're lacking here. And you see that manifested itself by having the concertina wire still up over that barricade.
General, I get more emails probably than any other subject about the concern for our military, concern for the Marines, concern for, honestly, even the SF units now at this point in time, where people see this SJW insanity creeping in places where it doesn't have a place, and it seems like it's happening so fast. How do we put a stop to this?
Well, there's a couple of ways to do it, but number one, you got your next chance in 2022. Yeah. Okay, and that's to return control of the House, first of all, and the Senate, but especially the House, that's where I live, to Republican hands, because we've got a new buzz phrase around here, and it's kind of bipartisan amongst those of us who are in the Four Country Caucus. We're all veterans, and it's GSD. You can pick your S, but it's get stuff done. We're going to have, so if you see that little banner, that little thing that just says GSD on it, you know, that's bottom line our mantra here, because it is about doing the right thing, regardless of where you're coming from a political ideology. But if you're going to be in a leadership role, you got to lead.
I'm sure you saw U.S. Air Force just ran a simulation where China kicked our rear end. That's pretty much what they did. They were a little more forceful with how they put it, but they ran a simulation against the Chinese attack, and it did not go well. Are we ready? I mean, I don't think, Lord willing, there's not a world war on the horizon, but are we ready to take on a country like China if we have to?
In some ways, yes. In some ways, we've got some catching up to do. And when you think about the fact that in the last 4 years under President Trump, we made up for the 8 years of being gutted under the Obama administration. The Department of Defense was just flat gutted. It was a pay-for other pet projects. The last 4 years, with the increases we've had in the defense budget, has put us on a path. But that path is in peril if the Biden administration does not continue the good defense spending, not wasteful defense spending. I mean, what do we need in the fight? We need ammunition, we need intel, and we need a plan. And you can suck down a resource dollar here in the Department of Defense faster than you can probably suck down a shot at a Friday afternoon happy hour, But the idea is that those of us on armed services are ensuring to the best that we can, and that means holding the Department of Defense accountable for what they're asking for, to say, okay, are you asking for more money to maintain something we're not going to use in a future fight because that's the way we've always done it? Or are we putting the dollars going forward to do the necessary advancement from legacy to next gen systems? But why that's important is that you don't telegraph your capabilities to the other side. You want to make them wonder that if they did something stupid, well, how bad was it going to be for them? But you don't, in this business, you don't telegraph your capabilities.
Well, you are obviously a congressman on the House Armed Services Committee, and you're a lieutenant general in the United States Marine Corps. Please tell me you're aware how miserable it is for the people on the military base when they hear you are coming to visit. You know you have people, police calling rocks and stuff out there, right, just to get ready for you to show up, General?
That's why I used to do a lot of unannounced visits. Everybody is more comfortable until you're actually there. Then the base command section gets a little nervous.
All right, now, besides China, everybody talks about China this. Who else should we have our eyes on out there? Is Russia a significant threat? I understand their missile systems are excellent, top of the line from what I get, and from what I understand, space-wise, they do really well. Is there someone else?
Well, not on the forefront to the level of a China and a Russia. But, when you think about what Russia's ability to do in the cyber world, we're at war every day in the cyber world. There's, different kind of shots being taken, but anybody who doesn't realize that cyber is the battle domain, if you will, of today, Russia plays very strongly into that. They have a focused commitment and inroads because of their recent successes over the past few decades. But just think of the most recent one with the solar winds hack. We have different competitors based upon different weapons type or battlefield scenarios. Again, battlefield being in the cyber world. But the future, if we say the last frontier, as you talked about in space, 2 weeks ago, I was down at Space Coast, met with the Air Force, Space Command, Blue Origin, SpaceX, and I think ULA, and talked about the future of how we will be involved in space. And that is where we have to wisely spend the money so that we can utilize the space domain as a successful battlefield.
Amen. Representative Jack Bergman, Semper Fi, sir. It's an honor.
Semper Fi, Marine.
How about that? We'll be back. People are coming to kill you. I mean, people want to come and kill you. They're called China. It's called Russia. We are not living in this magical new period of time where their evil men are all gone now and everybody just wants to share s'mores around the campfire and swap a couple innocent ghost stories. The world has not changed. Evil men in charge of evil empires want to take down the good empires. It's easy to convince yourself, as an American, you fought wars recently in Iraq and Afghanistan where your far, far superior fighting force will slap around anybody they take on. It's easy to convince yourself as an American, wow, that lasts forever, right? That'll last forever. Oh, so what? We'll have to go slap around this country or that country. No. The history of the world says there's an expiration date on that. If we don't stop this insanity we're doing in our military, that expiration date is going to come sooner than you or I ever wanted it to. All right. We'll see you.